Hello, this is Sarah Aronson. First of all, thank you to Carissa Cummings and David Axelrod for this generous invitation, and thanks to Basalt and Eastern Oregon University. I'm going to be reading from my collection and other bodiless powers, but before I do that, I want to acknowledge that the land that I reside on and that I'm reading from is the traditional home of the Salish and Kalispel people, and many of the poems reflect my home in Southeast Alaska, which is the traditional home for thousands and thousands of years of the Tlingit and Haida people. I'm going to start at the beginning. If not thirst, then this blood crescent welling in a trout's small eye, the heart so near the jaw. The water tasted thin. I kept wrapping my hand around my own throat. That same spot on the river called me back. For weeks it was meltwater, then forest fire, a patch of sun scalping golden trees. Culling the understory from the berries, white spiders crawl out. A crow from the southwest at sunset. We exchange in murmurations. I take in what your good eyes render, press my finger to the page folds, becomes a stalk of grass I put in my mouth to whistle you back. There are a lot of birds in this collection, and birds really animate my conscious world, and I think unconsciously they flew into this book, so I hope you'll tolerate them. Flatland. At night, cottonwoods collect vultures, bats keening off their own night songs. The earth inherited my sleep and made itself hard from it. 20 yards south of this trailer hitch bruise, the Rio Grande bends. On a mass of unclaimed brush, the painted turtle suns. I too live in this world unclaimed. The hair above my lip lightens. Ocotillo flames brown. Any water the clouds let loose did not reach the ground. Wind pushing my hair over the border of that other country. Hurtle into the current's charge. See what washes clear. My body will not canyon for a child. This, and not every fish need be caught. I never knew Texas. Expiration blues. Overtones of the first and eighth elements bound in ice. The way cold lights itself from within. I step with my full weight into a world, press boots into sediment, watch impressions swell from the ground up. Crouch to tally the silver hairs of lupin banners, but cannot number the soft granules in clay. Some species flourish, come back fervid after fire. This is certain. I say I like how sun cups dimple old snow. But this year came tundra sprung, permafrost huffing, a bluff charge. Takeaways. What begins with a wend ends by careening. The dirt-crazed hound ignoring high hollers to get on home. In this room, we were pitiful owners. In this room are chairs for higher purpose. Take everything you own and divide it by insemination. Slow down anything, and it will begin to look like seduction. Stars were transiting in full view, except it was day. His finger wide enough to keep Venus and Jupiter from marrying. Hiding can only take place in pairs. There are things only two can do. Whiteout. Here is the place the children I will not have won't miss. Islands hydrographers only suspect and so name with doubt. The search for the neighbors has been suspended. A year's worth of mineral tears and debris no one could find. How many times I also undress to freeze on that mountainside. In dreams, I pull fistfuls of seaweed at high tide. There are days I lumber into pine shade so I can gaze back on the world without squinting. On this day, though, I would like to be delivered to the thicket's wet center, then left. A field. Compassed by lodestone, I keep returning without a guide. Mat of weed bed, magpie-studded fence line. From the bed you press me to name all the trees. I mistake needles on a tin roof for rain, your reserve of words for vows. It is only wind casting through the pines. One of the preoccupations of this book is desire lines, or those animal paths or those human paths that we make across curated lawns, or around the edges of rivers or trails on the hillside, to help us get to what we seemingly want the most. And so the center of this book is this hinge poem called Desire Lines. It is February again. Light gains. How long it took to bury these bulbs. Mute potential. The hedge crusted with snow. A bottle of liniment oil bedside. Sifting up from sleep, something had its teeth in my hair. The scene came tree-cut, hesitant as a wild peacock. A clean skiff of snow over Moon Pass. This dream involved fire. Something wet caught. I press an open hand to drywall. Permanent cold. This isn't about you, though you are there. A plaid Oxford, the divot of your temple. Why always this Spartan climb back into ourselves? There was a time I bent down for nothing, had said I wanted the world to decide. Rosemary styptic, I talked to no one. Ravened and not wanting to be caught looking like it. A phone call from Seagoville, Texas. Vaughn Williams on the radio. When they found her mouth packed with earth, I imagined sweeping my finger through. A pronghorn antler in the crazy mountains. My jacket snags swinging one leg through barbed wire. Strands of hair whip like tent walls. Boot tread, the brown earth fighting back through snow. A future came to us and we turned against it, plucking arrows from the meat of our backs. Source work. Single pip in a cluster of field mint. Minor fissures and ice. 4 parts scored in a dark quintet of elevations. Consider these distal beginnings, intent on riverbed limits, scrimshaw lobes, Not everything survives as ivory. Together we melt tin, pour it into our reservoir of snow. Not everything blooms. Planting in April. In asking for flushed stalks, a low swath of rhubarb under which white strawberries could seed, you shake your head, push your thumb into a soft corner of time. Agree, forget-me-nots might match the trim. Say, cedar weathers to gray. I paw into loam. Bees are overtaking the willows. The sun blotted out by a blurred gown of rain. At dusk, detached bands of ice crystals light up long before other clouds move into view. Tessellations which appear only in the company of others. Two girls ride bikes around the same square block. This spring, my timing is off. As a consequence of moving forward, the river bottom circles your ankles downstream. My fingers wrap around either side of hawthorn to steady against runoff. Stoneflies break into shaky flight. I lay orange peels beside their split gray husks. Lose sight of you, mending into a wide hold, casting with a favor of wind. I have married a dozen fish already, hefted my share of canoe. Battened on a creek, I was only trying to read the sky on the water. No, the water behind the shadowed boulder, where an ancient steelhead is swaying, swaying, but holding. I had a moment 2 years ago when I was in my hometown of Juneau, Alaska, and I was at the State Museum, and they had this really brilliant display where they had taken minerals from mining extractions, and they had placed a smartphone in the display case as well, as a reminder that even our most commonplace technologies come from the earth. And it's a good thing to remind ourselves that everything that we use and have is a version of extraction. And the complicated piece about it is sometimes when we extract things, they can become dangerous. And I was shopping for a new cell phone, and I actually couldn't find any dumb phone where there weren't pretty serious warnings about what the side effects might be. So I was writing this poem with that particular version of despair, of course based in the natural world. Flight patterns. A warbler neck breaks the band of my fingers, flits off to yellow the sky. That spring, love was a washed-out road, fade lines on the wing. Jackknifing, I couldn't back my way into anything. Ribbon lightning, trace precipitation, a life so minor that an ant surprised me, a snake flattened on the road. Raven's throat knocks open. Not just death, but the way light papers the skin. Gold veins the rock where I doused for you. Waterline pressing my thighs into memory. Quiet hours skate above the creek's din. And me always calling from another epoch. Rapture of signal fire. Earth limits. Not even her highest powers. That type of helplessness, that exact hype. Abstract birth defects promised from my phone. A week without debt scare. There is not a fruit I care to name. Side-channeled by the great animator of wind, wild rose, spook of moose calf, we trot in opposite directions against the same thorns. Siloed. As if not everything had rusted, dry wheat bent from seed. A split-rail fence, its 3 crows panting. Each mountain division was lit up or about to be. Summer staggered, antlers locked. Lamb's ear and mullein root suckled. I stood beneath a lodgepole ribcage, smoke blind. If you come back as the sky dressed as sky, I'll be the hacksaw, a cricket grafting its wings. I'm just going to read 2 more. Open season. On the island in the river,
this is Sarah Aronson.
Grasses flattened
First of all,
from animal sleep. Baskets emptied. Even so, I step around. Part willow switches, tilt at that same angle, then rejoin the current upstream. A killdeer wades. Persimmon leaves flash broadside in the pocket where I knew trout had been. Somewhere, a man's body reckons to limestone. A boy sights his first rifle. We draw symbols for cumulus and nimbus, build instruments for measuring wind. I lie down on the logjam, knowing today the warmth of this year will end. My chest vaulted as the whitetail's ear. She will cross the river back, but only in my leaving, only at dusk. And other bodiless powers. The ancients said, anything you can't understand is cause for celebration, as evidence of the mystery, and why rain broke solid against the windshield, shutting down the interstate, or why I thinned beats in your same manner of pulling up shallow roots. Each berry that didn't come off with a stem stained, hands threading and blued. What was it you called in, transient and overtaken? A blooming vine? Fragile as quail on the road. For a while, nothing sparked. I sat down to beads of last night's rain on stalks of field grass. What began as a mountain range in winter became a steelhead out of water. I had to tuck myself into the low sway of a talus slope, and by morning gave myself to white pelicans buoying on a warm river. Whatever crosses my path next, let it be proof. If I am to be misled, let it be by the first winking star, her wristlet of dust. Thanks again.